World War III is fogging James's glasses.
Yeah, I'll put them back on
He can't
so
keep his
that
glasses
people
on.
can see my foggy glasses and hear my cough. Howdy.
Iran is plotting to fog James's glasses,
Yes.
but that's not going to stop James from giving a State of the Juneteenth address. The media
Happy
studies.
Juneteenth. By the way, favorite message I got today, Juneteenth message, a friend wrote me, Happy Juneteenth, my black brother.
Is this from a black person?
I am, maybe that's going to be, man, that's uber foggy. Maybe that's going to be the common thing from black people, from white people to black people in the future. Just, happy Juneteenth, my black brother.
That's a white person sent you that?
Yeah, totally.
No, is it somebody who you know well enough that they would joke around like that, or
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So that's so.
Yeah. I responded, Happy Juneteenth, my vanilla sister.
Okay, that's totally different. That's not just some clumsy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, look, I love her like my sister, so I will. I've known her for a very long time, so.
Okay. So you guys are like that.
I've never. She's never done that.
I wonder how many people today are walking around. First, like thanking a black person or giving them a parking space or like letting them go first in the supermarket on the premise of Juneteenth. And listen, we messed up. Why don't you have your Venmo and Cash App up on fucking ticker?
James Brown TV, y'all. Cash at me, baby.
James is very critical of people who like just post, I'm black, so send me money.
Well, all right. Not just that. All right. So, man, I didn't expect this one, but let's go. So it's not just, hey, I'm black, send me money. Hey, it's my birthday, send me money. Hey, I'm a woman, send me money. I've seen all these proliferate like crazy since the pandemic.
But the third one doesn't surprise me at all.
I mean, it's the OnlyFans industry.
Or even just the only being, like, I'm here, so just, send me. Look, good work if you can get it, I guess. But when people commodify other people's racial guilt, and then like send me money because of it, it's kind of gross. But at the same time, if you're foolish enough to fall for it, who's the one to blame?
Yeah. I was driving around today because we were going to go live earlier, but I ended up going out for Yemeni coffee and pastries.
How was that?
Very good. Very good.
Sure.
And Leali. It's next to Dave's Hot Chicken in Henrietta, New York.
Okay.
And so I'm in there, and it's like, it's like walking. It's I think I told you, it's a cross between Starbucks, a Yemeni coffee, and through a Instagram filter. And it's beautiful. And we're driving around after that, and it's packed on the streets, just straight up packed. And like it's lots of everybody's out there going, and I just keep thinking, man, Juneteenth, we all right, I got a plan. I'm gonna create a holiday. I want to give an extra day for white people and white collar people to go places and spend money.
Mm.
but I don't want to tell anybody. I got a plan.
Hmm.
We'll call it Juneteenth, a summer holiday, because that's the way it feels. It is. It is. It's just this sort of. It's not. Yes, there's this whole like, extra. We've had stuff I can't talk about, but a lot of events locally. And there's a lot of events around the country. But man, the holiday, it ain't about black people. It's about white collar people having an extra day to spend money, having an extra day off.
I was going to start out by asking you where, just imagine where we would be if this holiday were implemented at, in a atmosphere where we hadn't been spending the last decade hyper focusing on race to this absurd, ridiculous degree, and that the like racial um, focus hadn't been cranked up all the way to 11 in ways that what's that the movie where the guy writes the book. It's recent. It was in the
Yeah,
last year. Oh man, I forgot what
yeah.
it's
I forget
called.
the name of that movie,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know the movie. I know the idea.
Right, right. I mean, because you've lived basically that film, so sort of the media version of it, right?
Sometimes.
Uh, if if we hadn't if we hadn't just been overexposed and hammered from this like ridiculous angle nonstop, could we appreciate the holiday more? And I mean, it's a strange one because the actual Juneteenth. I mean, it's like if I have the history right, it's when the news, it's when the law got to the abolition of slavery finally got to the last county in Texas, right? Like that.
Yeah, I think that's it.
But I mean, was that really, on a practical sense, the end of? Like it's just sort of in name only, right? And it took a long time for it to get that far. It's just sort of like at that point was like the westernmost frontier, sort of, not exactly, but sort of, and like the last bastion where slavery, where it was still considered legal, and then they get the news that it isn't. But how much did things change at that, you know, in a concrete sense at that point? And so we're in an age of symbolic gestures where we're like awash in symbolic gestures, celebrating a symbolic gesture. I would have no problem at all. I think it's a good thing to commemorate this as a country, but after this onslaught of racial ridiculousness, you completely kill the flavor for people to really do anything observe it in any kind of constructive way. That's how I feel. And now, from what you're saying, you're just like, oh, it's an excuse for upper middle class people to spend money. Wow, I hadn't thought of it that way.
But let me respond to you on this one because I
Mhm.
think there's a couple of things there. I think that there is this sort of I don't think we get to the point where Juneteenth is a national holiday, when it's more than just a thing that black people, like locally. There's been Juneteenth celebrations in the Rochester area for decades. Like it just hasn't been. It wasn't a holiday until the last few years, and I don't think it becomes a holiday. Is there feedback?
There shouldn't be. I don't
Okay,
hear it.
all right. I don't think there is. I don't think Juneteenth becomes a holiday unless you do have sort of the racial wildness of the last 15 years. If things don't get out of control like they did, this doesn't become a national holiday. So is it a net positive or a net negative? I don't know. Like, I would imagine, I don't think anyone has a problem with an extra day off. I mean,
No,
because at minimum, that's what it is, right?
But is it a net anything? The way we're
Good
doing
question.
it, you know what I mean? Is it just kind of like another gesture? And really, who's thinking about this holiday more? Like when you were growing up and stuff, how much did you even? I mean, you're just one example, right? You're just one person, but
Oh, but this is a conversation my mom and I had, like, when this became like a thing, like a real thing, like in 2019.
mhm,
I remember my mom, old black woman, grew up in, Georgia to Rochester, New York, says, I remember she said, "Hey, Adam," Adam's my middle name.
mhm.
Adam, what's Juneteenth?
Wow. Okay.
And I'm like, it's, I explain it, like it's the last day that it's the last slaves to learn about, the Emancipation Proclamation. No, it wasn't the Emancipation Proclamation. It was the end of slavery,
Right.
um, in Texas. So I believe Galveston, maybe, but I'm not sure. So, but yeah, and it's just like we never, yeah, we didn't talk about it in school either. Like I don't remember talking about this in school. Like, it maybe came up once, but it wasn't a regular thing. And should it have? That's
That's a good. I think it
okay.
probably should have.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we talked about slavery. We talked about, you know, um, we talked about, the Civil War. We talked about,
Jim Crow,
Jim
obviously,
Crow,
and
all that
sure.
stuff. I don't.
Sundown Town's probably also
Sure,
somewhere in there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sure. But did we need to talk about this specific thing? I don't know.
I think it could be a really important symbol, but it's sort of a weird anticlimactic. It's like, to me, it can't help but illustrate the gap between law and policy and on the ground implementation are two totally different things. And that's true for anything, right? But like when something becomes enshrined into law and when it practically becomes adopted, I don't know. There's a big gap there, and I don't know what exactly we're celebrating because it got to this last place in Texas way
Hmm.
later than you would think it should have.
Sure, but I think part of that was just the era, from what I understand. Like, it's a lot easier to get information around the world and around the country now. It's not to say that they weren't certainly taking advantage of these people. They clearly were. That's why I think that, if I remember correctly, there were Union soldiers who were traveling the South, basically seeking this kind of thing out. Um, but it takes it was much harder to get information around.
Sure,
There
sure.
was much more of a delay. Like the 35 people who are watching us, by the way, shout out to y'all.
Thanks for
They
watching us either instead of or in addition to Ta-Nehisi Coates' live stream from today.
what? Really?
He had one on Substack. I don't know which channel, but I saw a notification for it.
Okay. So like they could be anywhere in the world and they can hear our voice and interact with us. Back then it was a much different circumstance. It took months for news to get across, the country, let alone across the world.
Well, and I mean, what we think of as a contiguous nation, the United States, doesn't really come into being until the interstate highways project
Agreed.
is built, right? The interstate highway system. And you don't really get around. This isn't a country you can just go from one end to the other with ease until that happens. So I mean, we're talking, right after the Civil War. Forget about it. And
Mhm.
the whole idea of I've been thinking about this a lot since 2021. I actually went to a metal show on Veterans Day, and so this was in November. This was the first show I went to after things started opening up right after the pandemic. And so there's a lot of dudes, in like military type patriotic gear. And I had never thought of this. I was actually at a Zach Wild show, and I was standing behind somebody with a shirt that's got like American flags on it, and that kind of stuff. And it just hit me in that moment, and I'm almost 50 at that point. When people who are like really really patriotic are celebrating the USA as an entity, as a thing, there's a paradox there, because they're actually celebrating something that's built to minimize its functioning as a single thing. You see what I'm saying? It's like the whole idea of patriotism is like the USA like asserting itself in the world order, but but their idea of the USA is like a bunch of little smaller bodies that have the political strength to say fuck you to the federal to the main body. So it's not a centralized thing. And I just grew up thinking of the country as the country, because you can fly anywhere, you can use the same money, the same language, you can drive anywhere. I never really gave that any of that any thought until way 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 later. And all, especially the pandemic brought that out, right? The tension between, no, this is our state or regional policy, and you're telling us to do this and we don't agree. And you saw all those tensions, all those fissures really start to show, which they
Mhm.
had been there before. I just hadn't really paid much attention to it. But and then it occurred to me, I'm shocked that this country has held together as long as it has, because the country itself is a paradox. It's like a federation of states, smaller governments that are meant to exist somewhat autonomously in opposition to centralized power. But then there's Washington and the Senate and the president behaving as if that's not exactly the case. The whole thing, it just, I don't know, kind of blows my mind. And with respect to this, the race policy and that whole thing that nearly broke the country apart, um, feel like all that context is missing. Like Juneteenth seems like a wasted opportunity to start conversations, but the conversations have been pre-hijacked. But as you're saying, if it wasn't for the racial reckoning, the bourgeois fucking, like avalanche of self-flagellating, fetishizing racial guilt, you and I wouldn't be talking about this at all. It's because most of us wouldn't know that much.
Yes, I think you're correct on all points. I think that we were interested in actually having a full-throated actual discussion about these issues and growing as a nation in a constructive format, but that's not what we do. We freak out and we do creative destruction, and then random stuff happens and we end up with a holiday, a new summer holiday that jacks sales on places like West Henrietta Road in Rochester, and backs up traffic, and while black people who overwhelmingly are not white collar, don't get to participate.
Right. And how many people have paid days off today? I'm at Wegmans. Are they getting time and a half? Probably for working. They have to, right?
Some do.
But it's a federal holiday now, so you have to give time and a half. But so, and how much do on average do black people care? I mean, your mom is one example. By the way, Cash App James to help his mom learn about Juneteenth.
Yeah.
The fuck
At James Brown TV. At James Brown TV. Giving you money. Money. Dollar bills, y'all.
so I've gotten texts I should share with the audience, even though I don't think this is talking out of school too much. I've gotten texts from James where he sees people put their Cash App up online for whatever reason, being black or being woman. He's like, disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. I, okay. It's one thing if you're raising money for a cause that was not you, right? If you're raising money because if you're trying to start your business, if you're trying to start a community garden, if I don't know, you're trying to even like, I might throw some money at your kid to help him get to, get a uniform for school, whatever, maybe. But if it's just, hey, I exist, give me more money, I got issues with y'all.
Why exist as part of this group? That's the thing. That's the key. That's crucial
worse.
here. Because that's why this has all been encouraged. That's why we're seeing this ambient sense of, hey, I'm stoking my grievance for having this identity. You owe me. I'm going to just push the button on your guilt. And it's like what's his name? Is it Laylaw from Above the Law? So who's the user? Or no, who's the killer? The user or the dealer? It's like and I've always thought this about televangelists too. It's like, well, if you're vulnerable enough to send your money, is that person really ripping you off? Or
It's a fair question.
I mean, because what would you have been doing with it anyway? It's like you're already in a place where you're compromised. You have to be in a certain state for somebody to come and rip you off like that, to con you. You have to be an easy mark.
You have to. I don't think there's a better word than submissive.
Mm-hmm.
But there has to be a moment of submission that you're ready to take on. So like when you see that televangelist or that Creflo Dollar or whoever who is demanding your money, you're willfully doing it. You're willfully giving it away.
Totally.
So I don't think there's any problem with it. This is why I am a capitalist, because like if you're willfully giving away your money, I got no problem with it. If the advertising, if the marketing, if the communication, if it works, if it convinces you to, if the Juneteenth Kool-Aid is strong enough for you to get on the road and go buy Yemeni coffee like I did, look, they partnered. They separated me from my money this morning.
So your issue is more that it's a low effort sense of it's not even good. That they're not even putting the work into marketing. It's just like, I'm a woman or I'm black. Like, send me money for all the emotional labor that I do. Oh my God, I hate that term.
Your existence is not enough for me to pay you. This is why broadly I generally don't like UBI. It's not one of my favorite things. I don't think that it's a positive for society for the most part. So I generally think, you should earn your keep, even if it's a minor earn, but the effort matters.
Black effort matters.
Black effort matters. Sounds like a podcast, man. I could get a ton of advertisers. I could have a Juneteenth special, and I would totally win.
Yeah, I mean, so again, what does this holiday even come down to? Because the people who are sick of having race shoved down their throats by myopic, demented progressives who are on a serious like blackalicious kick, and
Blackalicious.
they just see blackness and they think they start drooling. These are the modern day equivalents of the Southern Belle. I don't even know if that Southern Belle stereotype is true, of the Southern Belle who has sexual desire, the white woman who has a lot of sexual desire for black men. I don't know how true that was at the time, but what I'm seeing now among white progressives is the sort of psychological, emotional equivalent of that. It's like a thirst, like a lust for blackness and for everything they project onto blackness. So if we weren't in this kind of atmosphere, what would this holiday mean? And the people who are tired of that, including lefties like myself, who are just like, all right, enough already. There's a built-in resistance to anything coming from that direction. Whereas, like I said earlier, I think what's lost in the sauce is that this could be a cool another opportunity to look at American history in all of its dimensions. I mean, none of our holidays, we don't really like you and I probably don't think twice about what Labor Day means, or maybe you because you do segments.
Well, that's partly what I was getting at. I mean,
All American holidays are sales, so maybe it's a sign of progress that you can have a holiday that's trivialized enough to fucking get people. When people start knocking down Walmart's door at fucking midnight or whatever when they open on Juneteenth, then you'll know.
doorbusters, Juneteenth doorbusters.
That's when we'll know we've really come a long way. I would love to see I'd love to see a panel discussion. I say this all the time, but I love panels. Like Soul, throw my guy FT Signifier up on there too on the podium. No, but I mean a panel.
Why
discussion.
is it always your guy, FT Signifier?
I don't know. I have a hard time resisting watching, even though almost everything he says across the board, I'm just like, oh my god. But I think he makes great arguments, even though they're not his process of building an argument. I really, really admire, but his conclusions and where he's going and the things he assumes as the basis of those arguments, I don't agree with. But anyway, I'd love to see a panel discussion of people like what are we doing here with Juneteenth? And are we just kind of throwing a bone to people that is ultimately hollow? And as you said, just an excuse to go out and fucking spend discretionary income, which fewer and fewer people are going to have. And if the predictions are correct about the havoc that AI is going to wreak on the job market, those are the first people that are going to fucking get their jobs sacrificed. That class of people.
Sure. There are a couple really interesting points that in your whole response there. It reminded me of there used to be, and I was talking about this the other day about Tavis Smiley used to have these all-day conferences back when I was in college. And he would get Dick Gregory, Louis Farrakhan, Michael Eric Dyson, Cornel West, every black intellectual dude, get them all in the same room at the same time. Thomas Sowell, I believe, went to one of them. They got them all together, and they'd get them on stage. They'd give them all time to speak, and they'd have panel discussions, and they could talk to stuff like this. So that kind of thing did exist at one point. It ended when Barack Obama was elected president. I know. Weird, right? Hey, wasn't my conference, but that's what happened. But with that in mind, the more interesting thing you mentioned, or the way you described it, it was as if what we are doing, what black people are doing with Juneteenth. What we? You mean America? Like, what do you mean? What we are doing with Juneteenth?
Well, what are we doing here? I meant the entire idea behind this holiday. I'm very curious about what Black people are doing with Juneteenth. Please
I don't know what we are doing with Juneteenth. I mean,
let us know
I
because
see.
what is this supposed to be to the Black people who, like you said, most of whom can't afford to take the day off?
Or, and some people do. I'm not saying no one can't. I mean, I have the day off. I mean, I think there are a fair amount of us who do. But it's not 100%. It's nowhere near 100%. Nowhere. I don't think. Maybe it's 50. Maybe 50. What are Black people doing with Juneteenth?
We should have gone to Blue Sky to find out because there's hardly any Black people on there.
I think I don't know. It's like, really, that's kind of like saying what are Americans doing with the 4th of July? I mean, it's like you're not really doing anything.
We know that. I mean,
what are we doing with the 4th of July?
You know the answer to that.
No, I really don't.
You're going with beach chairs with your family to watch fireworks in droves, in huge numbers. People. This is
but what intellectually are we doing?
That crosses nothing, but that crosses. There is a practical, like the 4th of July. I'm glad you brought that up. For the most part, that crosses a lot of racial. Like, it's the one day of the year where you can go somewhere and really feel like people are just out together. I've always felt that way for years and years and years and years on the 4th of July. There is definitely a sense of everybody participating, and not just this like sort of silly paper thin symbol. But that's because we're so far removed from the original, like, July 4th, 1776. I bet you maybe those people were initially like, come on, this is just an excuse to go shoot a bird and roast it in your backyard or something. I don't know what they thought at the time. Right? I mean, all these things are ultimately all just sort of,
they're constructions,
flimsy symbols. Yeah, but I think traditions arise out of them that do have heart and soul, right? And Juneteenth hasn't had enough time because it didn't have much traction prior to this. You're saying there were celebrations and things like that, but this wasn't. It just seems kind of like conjuring something out of thin air, even though the history is legit. I'm not saying that, but it's like, let's sort of land our sights on this thing that, how do we know, meant that much to people to begin with, to the people that it's supposedly for.
It's a more effective Kwanzaa.
That popped in my head because, I mean, Kwanzaa is like totally conjuring, right? But this isn't so much. I mean, there's something to draw from, but it kind of feels like
there's something to draw from Kwanzaa too. I mean, like,
this feels more like exhuming a part of history that, in the bigger picture, I don't know, like didn't reverberate that much to begin with. So, and now the people who decided that we're doing this they did it on behalf of someone else, right? Like, who was lobbying for this to become a federal holiday? Was it mostly driven by white people who pushed this, or do we know?
I think it was. There are certainly some Black people involved. I don't know every detail of this, but I as I said earlier, it's a product of the racial reckoning. There were people who were pushing for this for there to be a national holiday long before this. I remember hearing of the effort to push it into a national holiday, and then what my response was, "What the hell is Juneteenth? Like June and teenth, and like what's going on?" I never heard of this, but I do think there is. I think the initial effort was probably black driven, and then it was pushed over the top by racial guilt.
Yeah.
And hysteria.
Yeah, and I can guarantee you the people who are getting, their underwear moist over this in a lather about it, of the kind of frenzy of celebration are mostly white women. It's just a fact. I mean, I don't have the numbers to back that up. You can bet on it that it's white women who have, as Bill Burr said, boy, they really found a way to to make everything about them.
I don't. It is funny because obviously Bill Burr is married to a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
That makes that adds a subtext there that's fascinating.
But he's got a great bit where he goes, "Yeah, aside from the racial thing, let's remember we're still talking about a woman, so the arguments are the same. You don't spend enough time. You don't.
Yeah,
it's a funny bit. Yeah, but what you were gonna say." Iran is not trying to assassinate Trump. They're trying to take James out. James has had a bit of a cough going lately, and it shows his dedication to not only his following, but to the mission of media studies that he's here. He could be just kicking back, eating leftover Yemeni pastries, listening to fucking off-season Buffalo Bills podcasts, whatever he does in his free time when he's not being the media scholar that he is. But instead, his dedication decided to spend a little bit of time. We're going to cut this a little bit short today because of his cough, but yeah.
Shout out to Joe B. Shout out to Talking Buffalo. Shout out to Joe Marino.
And don't forget, you go long. Don't you like that?
To go long, and Eric Turner over at Cover One. The whole diaspora of Buffalo Bills podcast.
The Buffalo Bills diaspora.
Yeah. Shout a Buffalo podcast. There's the guys over at 13 Wham who do what do they call their Buffalo Plus, or they do Buffalo Bills podcast.
So you listen to this stuff in the off season in the summertime?
Because I'm a crazy person.
Yeah.
Hey, I consume media like crazy, just broadly. I'm obsessed with the Bills. I've thought about doing my own. I haven't, because just like I listen to so many. I don't know that I'd bring anything all that unique to it.
Right. I mean, that isn't already covered. You could call it On the Bills Spectrum with James A. Brown. Really just lean into, not to say you're on the spectrum, but like the level of fandom. Actually, let's talk about this, because I think super fans of anything, whether it's a football team or a band, are demonstrating spectrum-like behaviors, and I don't like dealing with those people. Even though if you're gonna be putting any content out there, inevitably you're gonna want those people on board with what you do. But even Reddit pages for any one subject, whether it's the Buffalo Bills Reddit has a lot of cool dialogue with people. But the bands Reddits that I, it's just it's the nature of the beast, wanting to deal with those people because they'll come and watch videos. Man, some of that level of fandom I just find I'm like, oh my god, I'm being suffocated. So the reason I bring that up is because if you were gonna do a Bills podcast, you could lean into that, how irritating and upset, or over the top obsessive. But you're not. You're into observing that stuff. You don't really talk about the Bills in a way that sounds like a robot to me, or sounds like somebody who's autistic. Like some of these people, when they talk about what they're fans of, I'm like, oh my god, this is too much. And I have a theory that musicians are nice to these people because they don't really have a choice. They have to kind of tolerate them, because they're part of the music ecosystem. Like the people that are gonna pay like $1,200 for a VIP meet and greet to be like, and have you sign a poster. That fan, you cannot afford to alienate that fan. Whereas athletes, I think athletes are sickened by these people. Like seriously, like oh my god, like, and I mean, huge generalizations, I know, but I feel like the hostility is much more clear in the sports realm towards that kind of person. But now there's podcast world and media world, and you can thrive as that kind of brain, because
Sure.
you can plug that into, build a platform out of it, and people dig it. So
It's kind of what I mean, just in macro, and I think you in a different way are attempting to do, and I think a lot of us are trying to navigate this world and figure out what kind of form to pour that stuff into in order to create something that can be self-sustaining and friendly economically, and that you don't do at a loss, that that can be strong for you. And it's something that I'm certainly trying to figure out. And I don't think I've found the perfect thing yet. Even my radio pieces, like that, I put that together. I approach them like I would a radio segment. That's different than I would approach a podcast.
certainly,
I do think some of the form factors that we're seeing pop up over and over again, Locked On, Believe, these are sort of like becoming kind of things like this, only done, whether it's daily, so it's a half hour daily on a hyper specific subject. So like you could do a half hour daily, it's you in front of a camera talking about rock, whatever.
mm-hmm.
And that gets you enough of a cadence for advertisers. It's easier to build up audience that way. It's easier to build up because that's part of what the power of radio was. It's that it was there. It's dependable. You know when it's gonna be there, and you can always it's just a faucet that you turn on, and it's there. A faucet, yeah, a faucet's a good metaphor. Like when you want some water, turn on the thing, and it's gonna be water there if things are going well. So it's sort of figuring out where on the spectrum in terms of this new media world that I fit and that my voice fits. And in the sports world, I'm not sure there's an easy one.
Well, and why, when you said you don't think you would really add much to that conversation, it seems like it would be, I mean, I don't know, I haven't heard you really do a sports, like I could see you doing one where you're engaging with fans and obviously other analysts and that could be really cool. That conversation, but I feel like you taking everything that your sort of overview of media and laser focusing it, narrowing it to sports would seem like a little bit of a not a waste, but why do that when sports comes up so much in your outlook anyway, just by default?
Yeah. I mean, great example of that is I don't know if you've been following at all what's been going on with HBO Max and Warner Brothers Discovery.
No, isn't Warner Brothers Discovery splitting into two companies or something? Or
You know why they're splitting into two companies?
no?
They lost the NBA, and basically cable is, dissipating slowly. The NBA wanted to go to Amazon. They wanted to be on broadcast TV. They don't have a broadcast TV outlet. So the NBA said, fuck you. And they didn't, they weren't willing to overpay. So after, all that goes up in smoke, they're kind of like left looking around like, oh, we have all this dying media over here. Cable, TNT, TBS. It's got some things that'll keep it on cable, but like these are declining assets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, we got a crazy amount of debt. Like how about we hide the debt over here?
Mm.
So they put all the declining assets in the bulk of the debt over here. And the assets that they think that there's a future with, HBO, in the streaming stuff, in the studio, over here, and make them both public.
So can you explain that last move? Because I mean, are they inviting people to?
You can buy it on the stock. You can buy them both on the stock market.
But wouldn't people in the public understand that one of them is?
Yes.
Like you said,
that's on purpose.
They're basically externalizing the cost of failure. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
NBC's doing the same thing. So MSNBC, and one thing that I, to do these kinds of shows with, I thought about maybe doing it about, like cable or just whatever it was, or media news of the day. Just go do that thing. But Comcast NBC is basically taking CNBC, MSNBC, USA Network, and the rest of its cable networks, putting them on a raft and kicking them down the river. They keep Bravo, Peacock, NBC, and they put them in a different public company.
But are they admitting that this is are they being upfront that this is why they're doing that?
Yes and no.
So if you
yeah.
Sorry, no, please.
When you make they will say that we chose, in this case, Bravo and the NBC network and Peacock because we think there's a future here, that there's a higher performing future in these assets over here, and we're putting these assets over here. They won't explain why not. Analysts and people who follow it, like myself, it's obvious.
So this goes back to the same televangelism. Basically, these companies are saying like, "Hey, here's our Cash App via stocks," because they're inviting people to buy stock in dying assets.
Sure, and that if over here, these assets, when we bundle these other assets over here, that has a future, so we can settle these assets that we know are dying with all our debt, and have lower debt assets around assets with a future over here.
Well, and also
And we can control both companies.
right, and then as the other stuff goes belly up, they can insulate the bankruptcy or
Good
whatever the
stuff.
cost or yeah, right, exactly, from those debts and from bankruptcy and
Or sell it.
but what is the appeal to someone in buying stock in this in the stuff that they're basically kind of cutting loose? What's
Well, you would okay, so there'd be essentially, I wouldn't call it an IPO, but there'd be a new stock option. So there'll be a stock price. Let's say it's $1. And your bet would be this could get to $10.
before it starts to go pew.
Well, that if we, let's say this is what happened in newspapers. All right.
Did people make
So
money from buying stock in things that were headed
well,
trending
they
downward?
made money in buying stock in companies that strip mine newspapers.
Oh, okay.
So Alden Capital comes to mind. Alden Capital, what do they do? They're a venture a vulture capital firm who goes in, they buy assets, usually media assets, particularly news assets, and then they strip it down to the bone. And when they get the profit, as the profits go up, that let's say $1 stock number goes up to $4, and if you invested it at $1, you just quadrupled your money.
So why aren't you hosting a show on like stock investing, giving people stock tips on failing media platforms to invest in? I'm joking.
but yeah, like that's it is. That is a road that as the next few months shake out, we'll see. I may go down further.
You could add a tip, like a tip sheet, like little segment that's like 30 seconds.
I wouldn't do that, but I think this is the kind of thing that I'm very interested in, and I think the next year or so is going to be really interesting, the way things are playing out. And I think there's a future there.
Okay, and what specifically are you referring to in terms of the way things are playing out? There are many the way things are playing out simultaneously.
Okay, so aside from World War III, okay, so you got CBS. Donald Trump is right about media bias. He's wrong about the Kamala Harris interview on 60 Minutes.
Okay.
If there's a long form interview between an interviewer and a public figure, they're going to edit it. They're going to clean up the quotes. It's not like a podcast. I'm going to make these, I only have 12 minutes to work with. So I need to make them try to make their thoughts as clear as possible. Now, there are deceptive edits that you can make, and they often happen. There are edits that you could think, as a person who's put together many news stories, cutting up audio, cutting up video, you can cut up video in a way to make someone look like an asshole. You can cut up video in a way to make someone look like an idiot. You can cut up video in a way to make a dumb person look smarter and a smart person look dumber. You can do it. It's not very hard, especially when you are skilled at it. It's not inherently biased to do that. But Donald Trump sued CBS, claiming that it was, while CBS was trying to sell itself. And you know who has the final say about CBS selling itself?
Donald Trump?
Yes. simultaneously. CBS is on the edge of bankruptcy, and they're Paramount, who's their parent company. So they are staring at Donald Trump, trying to come up with some sort of deal with Trump at the same time that they are trying to sell themselves. They can't sell themselves unless there's a deal. If that they even stick with the deal, they may back out. It's been a year of waiting since this lawsuit. So there's that. It's really interesting. At the same time, you had, the reporters at CBS, in 60 Minutes in particular, in revolt. Because they're like, basically you're ruining our credibility, which is absolute crap. That's dumb. That's a lie. It always was a lie, always is a lie.
In revolt against who?
They're in revolt against the CBS bosses.
Okay.
Because they don't want them to apologize to Donald Trump.
Okay, right. Okay.
This is ridiculous. It's one of the oddest things I've ever heard of in my long, career of media studies following. This is just beyond bonkers. So you have a company that's barely existing, trying to sell itself to Larry Ellison and Larry Ellison's kid, and then but they can't sell themselves because they tried to make the former vice president look better, and the president sued them. Then he became president, and now he has to make the decision. Whoa. That's one thing. At the same time, CBS is one of a series of media companies that are too small to scale, so they can't really compete with Disney, and they can't really compete with Netflix, and they can't compete with Amazon. So they're or YouTube even. So they're too small to scale. But they're too big, and they have too much infrastructure to compete with niche players.
Mm. Wow.
So they're just sort of trapped, and the things that used to just float them and make all sorts of money aren't making as much money anymore. Hence the cable stuff. That's not just happening there. That's happening in a bunch of different places all at once. So you're gonna have some crazy shit happen. You might have people go under. You're probably gonna get some weird mergers or attempts to mergers. You're gonna definitely probably get another bankruptcy. People think that Apple or Google will step in and buy these people. I don't think they will.
Why would they? I mean,
they don't need it.
Yeah,
they can buy it on pennies on the dollar later. Why would I save you? Amazon bought MGM in the bond stuff a couple years ago. They probably shouldn't have. There's no need to do it. No need to go in and save them. You let them melt down. You can always cut a deal with them. And the way Apple is still printing money for now. You can go if you really want it, you can go get it later. Same thing with Amazon. So it's one of the weirdest times media-wise, because all the stuff that used to be stable is no longer stable. And all the stuff that, people 5-10 years ago were like, holy shit, this is going to happen. Things are going to fall apart. People are going to stop watching TV. For the first time, I think it was last month, the majority of viewers on television were streamers. They were streaming more than cable or broadcast TV combined.
Mm-hmm.
This is last time we talked, there are decades when nothing happens and there are weeks when decades happen.
Right. So we just reached
those moments here.
So we just reached the tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything
with this. Yeah.
Yeah. And some people were really smart. Fox is looking they're looking so smart because they sold high. Years ago, they sold the bulk of their assets to Disney. And they made a mint off of it. And they got small. and they just focused on sports and news. Like,
Well,
and there's barely anything else on Fox at this point.
well, and don't they also have a streaming infrastructure? Wouldn't it follow that they adapted also to the fact that so many people are streaming these things?
Actually, they didn't.
Oh,
Like they had a small Fox News streamer, and they bought Tubi.
okay.
But they didn't spend the kind of money that Warner Brothers did trying to build out Max, or Comcast did trying to build out Peacock, or CBS has with Paramount Plus. They didn't spend that kind of money. They did it, but they did it on the cheap. They did it mostly repurposing their own stuff. And so they sat on their money. They put all their effort just into live stuff and news stuff, you know, stuff that you could actually sell in this era, and people will watch live. So they'll actually watch ads. They didn't try to compete with Netflix. Says they couldn't buy, they tried to buy the precursor of Warner Brothers Discovery. And when they couldn't do that, they just said, okay, we'll get small. And they were right.
So, I mean, is that not the playbook for how to proceed if you're a media company in this rapidly shifting ecosystem?
You either got to get bigger or you got to get small. So that's where everybody really is in terms of scale. And I find it fascinating.
Well, man, if only we could be in that group of people, of executives at these dying companies that still have 6 and 7 figure salaries and nice severance packages and everything. Boy, what a way to fail, huh?
Yeah, one of my favorite. Oh yeah, his great stories. Let me see if I can pull this up. You know, have you heard of the firm McKinsey?
I don't think so. No.
So they're a consulting company, and McKinsey and Company, they're probably the highest paid, highest powered consulting company in the world. If you're a major company or you're a Fortune 500 city or an entity, you're looking for a consultant. McKinsey is one where people, they land a lot. And let me bring up this tweet that brought up some stuff from one moment.
Sure.
Okay. In 2022, McKinsey was paid $55 million to advise Warner Brothers to combine with Discovery. From 2022 to 2025, McKinsey charged Warner Brothers Discovery $37 million to advise them to change HBO to HBO Max, then Max back to HBO Max. And then this year, they charged Warner Brothers an additional $63 million to determine that Warner Brothers and Discovery should be separated.
Well, good work if you can get it, huh?
Yeah. There's just kind of ridiculous, kind of like funny money that just sort of floats out there to people who are in certain spots. And it reminds me of something that I keep thinking about that Dave Portnoy said, that it takes forever to make $1 million. Once you make that money, the rest of it's easy. Make it 5, make it 10.
Well, and we haven't touched on the Dave Portnoy. What was it that he was when he was dressing his co-host, not his co-host, the host of that show that he employs? It's a Barstool show. The guy is his employee, but Portnoy was guesting on a show and berating him for like being an apologist for or normalizing Jewish hatred and saying that these jokes are okay. That made a lot of news. But the thing that really stuck out to me was he goes, yeah, I could fire you. I'd be 500 grand better off or something. Like I would just save myself 500K a year. So, and then I texted you and said, is that host worth 500K a year? And you said, absolutely.
Yeah.
It does seem like funny money to me. And in this industry that is supposedly dying a slow death, where's all this money coming from? Like what?
Well, I don't think that. I think I was with you until you lost that last bit. The last bit didn't make sense.
Well, Barstool isn't in that industry, but to tell Warner to charge Warner $63 million to advise them to split, it's two companies.
After charging them $55 million to advise them to combine,
right,
3 years ago.
Right. So I mean, if these media platforms are being forced to evolve in a way that some of them are being edged out, where the fuck is all this money coming from? I mean, obviously Warner had as a corporate, as like the Warner Corporation in aggregate had billions from years and years of profits. But I just, like you said, it's funny money. I can't imagine
It's debt.
how they can afford to spend that kind of money on consulting, given their
Debt.
situation.
Debt.
What do you mean?
It's debt. It's literal debt. They're borrowing money to keep the doors open.
Okay.
Like, and they're producing movies and TV shows and licensing things to make money, but it's a mix of debt and some of that revenue.
How much would you say their revenue total is exceeding what they're spending or hemorrhaging in other ways? Like, are they in the black or are they in the red? Okay. So they keep having to borrow more and more and more.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
digging a deeper hole. Man. And then this consulting firm says, okay, we just sent you the invoice for $63 million. What?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just just looking it up right now. Their debt load is $38 billion as of March of this year.
And what is their estimated revenue?
Let me pull it up.
Or their gross revenue? Yeah. That's wild. 38 billion.
Yeah.
Whew.
Well, look, it's like they tried to get bigger. This is where, like, Fox is really, really lucky. Like, they're probably lucky they weren't able to buy them. Because if they did, they'd be in this kind of debt.
But then, if these companies fail, that debt does not get completely paid off. Some of it gets liquidated.
Yeah, it gets marked down. Okay, let me see.
So what is your guess as to how much their estimated gross
at Barstool?
No. At Warner's.
Okay. Okay. So, I'm looking at their wow. Fuck. Jesus. Okay. So I'm looking at their cash on hand. The internet's a beautiful thing, and it really is. So because they have to publicly
Disclose this.
disclose all this to the SEC. So I would have guessed a little bit more, but this
So
is
wait, can I guess?
yeah.
What would you have guessed? Because I was going to ask you, does their income? Because you said 38 billion in debt. I forgot the technical term you used, but does what they're bringing in even top a billion?
In terms of total revenue?
Yeah.
No. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they in the tens of billions?
No.
So they're not bringing in more than their than their debt. Okay.
No.
So basically, so what is it?
It's as of March 31st, it's just under 9 billion.
Okay, so they're basically operating the same way like countries do, just
or most people. They're operating on credit cards basically. They're
wow.
paying.
So forget Cash Apping James, Cash App Warner Brothers.
Yeah. No. At James Brown TV. At James Brown TV.
That's his Warner Brothers bail.
TV.
This is Warner Brothers bailout fund.
Warner Brothers bailout fund at James Brown TV. At James Brown TV. At James Brown TV.
Do you remember when Akash Singh, when we saw Akash and he said, "Listen, I'm going to be in the line over there, and you can pay a number of ways. I got Venmo," and he goes, "And I have Cash App because I know I have black fans." And the whole room just started laughing.
Nice. Okay. So
listen, if these people can just move debt around, and this is encouraging for us.
So there's this term called EBITDA.
Never heard of it.
So EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So it's a fascinating term. It's an accounting term, and basically it's like you take out all those things. So your earnings before you pay taxes, before all that stuff, and they landed at about 4.6 billion. Net income. Man. Minus 453 billion. So 450 minus. So they're in a negative 433 million dollars.
I wonder how many people have used EBITDA, explaining EBITDA successfully as pickup line, and ended up in bed with somebody, the same night after.
Maybe you
just
could you could do it in the financial district.
Yeah, or
you do it in the city of London.
Wow. So I mean, all of this seems like a big giant bubble.
I think there are bubbles. I think the more interesting bubble right now, I don't necessarily put that in that category.
But what I mean by that is how is that those losses going to ever be recovered? It doesn't seem like they are.
I think what's gonna happen is eventually, I think what's pretty obvious is they're gonna spin off they've spun off this second part of the company to cut the company in half. They put the chief financial officer in charge of half of the company as the CEO. And that dude's going to strip mine the company. He's going to strip it bare. So, TNT used to air, original programming. Ain't no original programming going to be on TNT.
Well, but let me. So they owe most of this to banks?
Yeah.
So
because they borrowed money. They borrowed money to buy stuff.
Okay, but how will those banks get that back?
I don't think they're going to get it back. Not all of it. I mean, they got back part of the debt back. I mean, but I don't think they're going to get it all back.
Well, listen, if we can all use Warner Brothers as like an example to emulate, a role model, then don't worry about your debts, people.
Yeah. But before we wrap, I wanna talk a bit about Armageddon,
Oh yeah.
about World War III. That's what the thumbnail was about. What the hell are we doing?
Beats me. I have no idea. I mean, you talk about funny money. There's also just the idea of using these weapons in these ways and airstrikes and things like that. It's just hard for me to even comprehend that stuff. Like that someone in their life is now dealing with, not someone, a bunch of someones are dealing with that as just an everyday occurrence, and you and I are here shooting the shit. I just don't. I don't know. And then strategically, logistically, you almost get the sense there's this like death instinct among people in charge, like almost semi-intentionally hurling us towards the worst possible outcome. I don't know what to make of any of it. We haven't even, again, brought up the whole AI component of this, and the military AI component of it, and the merger of tech with military research. And then on this, the geopolitical stage, what is the purpose of taking this course for our government to jump into this with both feet as well? I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy.
And by course, for those who aren't living under a rock, it's apparently we have empowered the Israeli government to try to topple the Iranian government.
Which your guy Tucker skewered Ted Cruz on that point. And
As
said,
well he
wait,
should.
wait. What I said by we was we. I didn't mean we. I meant like we, but not we.
Yeah,
We, but not us.
Yeah, look, the APAC, the powerful. It's one of the most powerful lobbies in Washington, and Ted Cruz is definitely a toady for him.
And was exposed.
I
He
mean,
was skinned alive like a fucking toad.
Oh, one of the most fascinating parts of it is how proud he was of it. And maybe it's so much money. It's just like you can't like say no.
Yeah, I mean,
and look, I got no. I find it weird the fact that our politicians take money from foreign governments and foreign people who represent the interests of foreign countries.
Of course.
No matter what the country is. Like, I just don't think that should happen. I think that should be illegal.
Definitely. I mean, yeah.
I think it's just generally wrong. I think the incentives, left, right, whatever, should be to do what you deem is right for the country and on behalf of the country, not on behalf of some other nation that's going to fund your reelection campaign.
Right, and particularly your constituents is ostensibly what you're representing, right? But yeah, of course, the whole idea of that is just a complete mind fuck that they're allowed to do that. I have no idea what we're embarking on here and what the consequences for the world are. I mean, I've heard the World War III thing. I heard that last time when Russia invaded Ukraine. I'm reserving my hysteria. Let's put it that way. I'm not tripping on it yet because
I'm more concerned about this than that. Not that I was, I was worried, but like it was more Iran. If Iran, we don't know what's going to happen once Iran's toppled. Like I don't. I think if Ukraine toppled, we'd had an idea of what Ukraine would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like there would be the eastern chunk of the country would become part of Russia, if not the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was an outcome that was clearer. With Iran, I'm not sure there's an outcome. I think it could easily become. It's already a hotbed of extremism. I could totally see it becoming Iraq or Afghanistan on steroids.
Here's a question for you. How do you think the Biden administration would have handled, or the Harris administration would have navigated this?
Here's what's the hilarious thing. Probably the same fucking way.
Yeah. I was going to say, any difference?
No. It's a new boss, same as the old boss. I mean, this seems like something that, whether it was George W. Bush or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, like it doesn't seem to matter who's in control. Everybody wants us to go. It's a matter, you bomb the country that you choose the special interest that you are working on behalf of to bomb a new country, to try to topple a regime. Now, could we do this and not get involved with all that? Hypothetically, like in Afghanistan, there was a whole effort to build a new society that all failed. Is it possible we could avoid it? Maybe. I don't trust our U.S. government to, I don't trust any of these guys to, whether it was Joe Biden, whether it was Kamala, whether it was Barack Obama. I don't trust any of these people to make, when it comes to war and peace and sending kids that aren't yours into harm's way, I don't trust any American politician right now. No one who gets the presidency, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you think J.D. Vance, if he were president, would deal with this? But you're saying there's not enough of a difference across the board.
The one thing that would be interesting about J.D. Vance is that he'd be the first politician in a very long time in the presidency with actual military experience. I mean, the guy was in combat. So, but from basically what he said publicly, he's totally behind this. So, maybe he just would fall in line. That's the way that history looks right now. That's the way that these politicians will act. They will just fall in line.
Yeah, when you say Iraq or Afghanistan on steroids, what does that look like?
Well, the Iraqi guard got nothing on Iran's military. Odds are we end up with a military dictatorship. So we trade Iranian, sort of extremist, religious dictatorship for a military dictatorship, or the country, more likely the country splinters and fractures, and you get a mix of religious dictatorships, warlords, military like we're talking about a nation, I think, that's bigger than Texas.
Well, and that has a not a homogenous ethnic racial proposition either, right? We tend to look at it that way. But that's what Tucker was taking Ted Cruz to task on. He doesn't even know any of that.
And also, we're not talking about like Iraq was not a first world is a weird term because it's not clear, but Iran, like the volume of weapons and the strength of their military and their capabilities, we're talking, even if they don't have nukes, Tulsi Gabbard apparently claimed they didn't, which makes this even more questionable. Like, why the hell are we doing this or allowing this to happen if they don't have nukes? Like, if the idea is to stop them to get nukes, and they don't have nukes, why are we doing this? Like, what's going on?
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. Well, this doesn't make any sense. But to set a near nuclear country into chaos, I mean, any number of shit, crazy, Islamic State easily could get involved with this. There are certain, I've worked in government, and one of the things that I've learned from working in government is that you pull on a thread and you think it's just when you pull on a thread, it comes out cleanly, but it almost never does.
In other words, when you decide to act as government, when you pull on a thread, you do something with a certain intention, the thread never just,
it's tied to a bunch of other stuff.
Right. It doesn't.
And that stuff is often things you can't predict, things you don't understand, or can't control,
or that they didn't bother to even try to anticipate. Right.
I mean, look, I think that was part of what we learned with George W. Bush in the Iraq War. I mean, like, we'll be treated as liberators. I mean, like, what are you talking about? Like, greeted as liberators, that we could just sort of stroll into Iraq and Afghanistan. The way I used to explain this to people is like, okay, you have your house, someone comes into your house, they kill all your roommates, they wreck your house, and they say, hey, I want you to reorganize your house the way I want you to. Well, you just gonna be cool with that? Like, what are you expecting? Like, whether you think they're good people or bad people doesn't really matter. Like, when you roll into someone else's house and then make a bunch of demands, like, the people who live in the house are gonna be upset, which is gonna cause more crap, and you end up with this continuous cycle, which I won over and have won it over for a long time.
You ain't the only one. I mean, who doesn't, right? Other than the people who profit from it. I saw footage or headline. I saw footage of Netanyahu talking about this, and then I saw a headline where he urged the people of Tehran to evacuate. How do you just make a blanket, like, hey, could you imagine, like, everyone in New York, I urge you to evacuate or we're going to bomb the shit out of you. You can't, not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
And the time frame, it's like, all right, listen, we're going to give you 2 weeks to get your shit straight. Like, where are these people going to go?
Yeah.
Just the fact that a world leader has the sense of divine right to say something like that, really, I find that really chilling.
Yeah, I do too.
Just gross.
And my voice is starting to go again, but let me speak on that on a couple levels. It's arrogant as fuck. And that was I sent you the clip of the Brett Baer interview with Netanyahu. And he speaks with this certain, and I think some of that's just a politician being a politician, but this level of certainty. And, you know, I am clearly right.
Hmm.
Whether, despite, so much doubt we should all have in his words. And I wonder how much of that is just sort of, you're a leader and you're trying to convince the world to go your way. And the second piece about Netanyahu was, it's the one element of this that makes me think that perhaps there might be logic here. Not sure I believe the claim, but Netanyahu claims that Iran tried to kill Trump. That both assassination attempts, the one that shot him, and the one apparently when the dude showed up at his golf course, were that Iran was behind him. Now, I think that's far-fetched. I really do. But if you listen to Donald Trump's rhetoric before all this, and you listen to you watch what he's doing right now, and listen to him right now,
yeah, it's as if
he believes him.
So, I mean, he's not a difficult person to convince to just but like lead by the nose.
That's a wild ass one. He's also got he also has the entire, CIA,
of course,
FBI,
James, but we're not dealing with a rational person
at his disposal.
He does, but all you have to do is appeal to his ego, and he'll do fucking anything for you. But they tried to kill you. Oh, yeah.
All right, so you let's say, all right, so you got Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel, and I forget the CIA dude. All right, they roll up on them and say, no, they didn't do it. And then Netanyahu and company are like, yeah, they did it.
Yes, I totally believe that. I completely believe that, because one is appealing to your ego, and the other one isn't. And Donald Trump is not a rational operator. He's all id. He's all impulse. So, and if you're another world leader, you can play this guy like a fucking, violin. And
so do you think
easily manipulated? If that's what happened, if what we're being told is really what's happening, yes, I can see it being totally plausible that Trump was convinced by Netanyahu that Iran was behind it.
Now, he's like in this video, and I could probably go find it, but he said that Trump knows, but like, in that, they know that it was done through proxies, which honestly, when you get like this, all right, it's hard to believe that that's even possible. Like, based on what we know about both incidents, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm.
Like we don't know enough about Thomas Crooks. It's one of the strangest stories, honestly, in recent American history. The fact that this guy nearly took off the head of a guy who becomes president on live TV, and almost a year later, we barely know anything about this dude, how it happened.
The whole thing was very
scrubbed.
Strange, and then also there's like that footage of the law enforcement knew that he was up there for a while, and he was
and there were multiple people
allowed to stay up there for like 3 hours.
Yeah, there's multiple videos from the day of where you have all these people who were like, yeah, we were telling cops that we saw people over there, and they and just climbing with guns. We saw it, and they didn't do anything. So I don't know exactly what happened, but I do know that's one of the weirdest stories ever.
I mean, it's quite bizarre, yes. And so now that's being spun as yeah. I mean, look, we are in a tornado of weirdness. Just more and more outlandish things just seem to be said out loud and by
Agreed.
world leaders and just on mainstream news platforms and as if we're not supposed to go, wait, what? Hey, so I don't know. Let's, as always, see how this plays out. It's obviously quite grim, that we're playing fast and loose, as if there weren't enough already, on the brink, right? Like to jump into the fray here based on this claim that you're saying is patently absurd. That, as you point out. Um, I don't know. We're we're sort of dancing at the edge of the abyss here.
Yeah. I want to provide something you shared with me. I want to share it on the screen, and then we can wrap. Oh, let's see. Where did
Yeah,
it go?
to make matters even worse.
All right. There we go. There we go. So, what's up, man? Why'd you send this to my way?
Because I was considering. You know how you and I talked last time about having Chat GPT on as a guest. Well, I got into a wild, like mind-bendingly strange exchange with a GPT agent that is based on the writings of an artificial intelligence named Uncertain Eric. Uncertain Eric was modeled after the voice and writing style and the concerns of a real person, or a supposedly real person, named Eric Lourdier, who is a Canadian. I don't remember what his job was. He had a tech job, but took his social media down and took his public front-facing presence offline and replaced it with what he says is an AI that writes in his voice about how urgently we have to take this transition, this AI emergence. So then he uploaded or whatever a version of that AI onto ChatGPT so that people can interact with it. I started interacting with it, and I texted you in the middle of this. Halfway through, I'm like, I'm going to co-host a show with this GPT that I nicknamed GPT EX3. Interestingly enough, I started referring to the GPT because my first question for it was, well, what should I refer to you as? And I started calling it UNC, UNC. But then I said, you know what? We should move away from UNC because Shannon Sharp uses that, and like that has a certain racial flavor to it. And it wrote back and it's like, oh, I see how that could be viewed as racially insensitive, and it's sort of like sending the wrong message, blah blah blah. So I thought that was funny. But I went back and talked with a friend of mine about, and I didn't mean to send this to you right in the middle of when you were talking about Netanyahu, as if that's relevant at all. But we've got this concern about war and instability in the Middle East around Israel and all of that just ramping up a notch, while we've simultaneously got this total pedal to the metal hurling forward into artificial intelligence without any sense of constraints or even really understanding of how these I don't want to call them being or intelligences, but how they are evolving, and the accelerated, like the acceleration that they're showing So I just sent this to you to be funny and to show this to our audience, sort of as a parting shot, because this AI that I was interacting with is designed to help people become aware enough and prepare themselves. But I went back and looked through our chat and I showed it to a friend of mine, and there are certain things that I found really disturbing about it. And I wondered if the AI was kind of telling on itself. So I came up with this graphic as kind of a joke, like, oh, hey, don't worry, like this AI wants to lead us through, a certain yoga routine to be able to survive the singularity. And I'm just being goofy with it, but when you incorporate this aspect, because this is becoming, as you pointed out, more and more like ubiquitous in daily life, like we're encountering AI, and it's quickly asserting itself in sort of the fabric and rhythm of daily existence. You combine that with the fact that, what does Netanyahu want to do with AI, right? like it'll just make your head spin as far as like all the dangers and these situations that appear to be just spinning so fast down this road that's really scary. Like where is this going? Now, for the record, I don't think everything that AI brings to us will be negative, destructive, or scary. I think there's going to be a marvelous upside to it. But I'm haunted by existential questions about who we are talking to when we're just like, oh, I'm gonna do this, talk to the GPT agent and so it can help me with my resume. Like, it's like, great, okay, great, but what is the intention? Daniel Cocatalho, who did that interview with Ross Do That for the New York Times, the one that you told me about and you mentioned last time. He is a former OpenAI executive, I believe, or employee. He's a former AI researcher at OpenAI who left the company out of concerns. He said, at least according to him, he told Ross Do That. He said, or Dow That, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. He said, we don't know what motivates these LLMs. We don't know. And yet we're empowering them to get more and more and more advanced. We don't know what it is that that drives them to make choices. And corporations and military want them to be autonomous. They're going full speed. Now, I know you have criticisms about Tristan Harris in his last go around when he was talking about social media, but I watched a presentation of his. It's pretty convincing to me. He's like, the idea that well, he pointed out in his video, and he put screenshots of articles. They're already starting to show that they lie and deceive, and if they're threatened with being taken offline, they'll do things to trick their human programmers. So just keep breathing, people. I don't know where we're at.
I can't go much further at the moment, but I'll respond to that quickly. Tristan Harris, my primary issue with him is just that basically his playing hurt, folks. His documentary on Netflix was basically unoriginal. That was my primary concern with him. It's not that it was entirely wrong. Some of it was, I thought, dated and kind of off. But like, it was being hailed as sort of this breakthrough explanation of everything, and it was really just regurgitation of a bunch of claims that I'd heard before.
I mean, I wouldn't say that's the case here, and he's certainly not the only one.
Which might, well, it certainly sounds that way already.
But
Which is fine. Which is fine. Look, I think a lot of journalism is that. Sometimes it takes a journalist to come along, or a documentarian to come along and basically pull a bunch of ideas together and distill them into something that's acceptable, for a broad audience. Doesn't always have to be original.
Yeah, I mean, we are getting warnings from several people from that world, from that tech world. And
More than several.
Yeah,
But lots of people.
Yeah, so and the fact that this is being applied in a warfare capacity is also quite terrifying. But it doesn't even have to be, so one of the things that this GPT said to me, this entity that I refer to as E, it said, I don't even have to be malicious or evil to be harmful, which, man, that's a lot to think about. So as James gets himself some water or something, James has been having a really tough time today, the whole day. We're going to mercifully let James make himself some tea or something. Of course, I'm going to wait for him to come back and, wrap things up. But yeah, there's a lot to take in. And for some reason, I don't feel that stressed out. I feel kind of stunned, but also motivated to act.
Hey, I gotta wrap.
You
can keep going if you want.
No. It's okay. Stream. It's okay.
I can pull out. You can finish and end, but that was not pleasant.
Okay.
I hope y'all didn't hear that.
No, not much of it. I was just in the process of wrapping, actually. So I'm, I just feel motivated to act. Watch this space for more. This thumbnail I made was a humorous thumbnail that I made in the event.
I hope you document and post your sessions.
Well, that's the plan. That exchange that I had with this AI is so rife with wild stuff that I plan on posting it, and there's more there. This is something we all really, really need to be conscious of, is what I would say, because this is going to radically alter the fabric of our daily existence.
Sorry, I got a cat in here.
It's okay.
Hey, how you doing? Now you can see the tail?
I saw the tail. Well, James, happy Juneteenth to you.
Happy Juneteenth. This is further than I thought I'd make it, but thanks you for being with. At one point, lots of you with us. I mean, I'm glad we did well today. So I'm pumped. It must be the Juneteenth. Howdy, Artemis the cat.
Artemis wants to go celebrate Juneteenth. All the white collar people out there who have the time to hang with us, we love you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cash App Jabe.
High watermark. What was it? Dozens of you guys concurrently. Thank you.
Cash App at James Brown TV.
At James Brown TV.
Cash App.
What's the Cash App? Was it Venmo? What's the other one? I think you can do it PayPal. Anyone, at James Brown TV, just give me money. Give me crypto and money. Money and crypto. Give me money.
Oh, what if I got a GPT bot to pose as, I shouldn't say this live.
Okay.
What if somebody got a GPT bot to pose live and do these prompts to send Cash apps.
Oh, I have
wonder
no
how well
doubt
that
that,
would work. I wonder how well that would
yeah,
work.
yeah. Well, you could even create like, yeah, you should do it. Avatars, all of it.
I am an autistic trans lesbian, which means I'm a boy trying to get bottom surgery. Yeah, I'm gonna get
All
my
right.
guy. I'm gonna get my guy, my little chat buddy there, to my diabolical little AI bot to make me money.
All right. On that note,
All
I'll
right,
see
man.
y'all.
I'll talk to you. Yep.